Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me again on another episode of the Purpose Vision Future Show. My name is Amanda Heel and I'm coming to you from Canberra, Australia. Now, today I would like to talk to you about courage because really it's one of the things we need more than anything right now in today's uncertain world, so we can face our fears and overcome them and face our challenges and overcome them. So I'd like to tell you a few stories about courage and how to build your courage. So when I was laid off from my 17-year legal career, I retrained as a John C. Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach. And when I completed that training, I was offered a job by the Guide Dogs Association of New South Wales and ACT as a paid PR speaker. And I jumped at the chance because this was a chance to give back to the organisation that had given me 4 beautiful guide dogs to date, or seeing eye dogs as you call them, I understand. And I'd been doing PR work for the organisation on and off as a volunteer for many years. So to be offered to be paid to do the same work was fabulous. So I jumped at the chance, and it would also give me a chance to improve on my newly acquired speaking skills. So someone came to Canberra and they interviewed me, and everything was going well, and until they said, "Oh, how are you going to get to your speaking engagements?" And I said, "Oh, well, by taxi, of course, like any other self-respecting speaker who can't drive, because as you probably know, I'm totally blind, so I can't drive." And the interviewer paused and said, "Oh, well, what would you say if I told you that we expected you to get to as many speaking engagements as possible by public transport?" Well, it was then that the bottom fell out of my world. I started to shake and I felt really sick, and I had to swallow really hard to stop from throwing up in the interviewer's lap. Because you see, I hadn't caught a bus for 20 years. I'd caught buses to school and to university and to work. But soon after I started work, I was lucky enough to have someone give me a lift for the most of the 17 years of my legal career, someone to drive me to work. So I hadn't caught a bus for about 20 years, and I'd become so convinced that if I caught a bus on my own, I would get lost, and that would be a disaster, because getting lost was the one thing I feared more than anything else. In fact, my fear of buses had become so bad, or my fear of getting lost catching buses was so bad, that even the sound of a bus going past made my heart race until it had gone. And then I could go, "Oh, thank goodness, oh, it's gone. I don't have to catch the bus. It's all good." And I'd become virtually housebound because I didn't go anywhere unless someone drove me, or I had the confidence to walk there on my own. And there weren't many places where I had the confidence to walk on my own, because then again, I was afraid of getting lost. So I'm sitting there thinking about all this, and just then the other interviewer had gone out to get coffees, came back in with coffees in hand, and took one look at me and said, "What have you done to our speaker?" Because apparently all the colour drained from my face and I was looking a deathly shade of pale. Anyway, they told me it would be okay, and they told me that they would give me training, and they wouldn't expect me to get to my first engagement on a bus on my own. But I was still feeling sick and, anxious, and so I didn't make a decision right there and then. And so the interview closed and they said, "Look, get back to us." Anyway, I just finished reading John C. Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates Via Connect. And after I'd been out for, to get a bit of fresh air and I'd had something to eat, I started feeling a bit better. And I was reflecting on this book that I'd just finished reading. And one of the chapters was saying that to be a good communicator, you have to be authentic. You have to walk the talk. And I started thinking about this interview and I thought, well, gosh, I can't really stand up in front of a group of people and talk about traveling independently as a blind person if I'm getting driven everywhere. And really, I'm going to have to face my fears and learn to catch buses again so I can do this job properly. So I contacted them and said, yes, I would undertake the training and I would take the job. So to cut a long story short, I did 2 weeks of intensive training, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth on another episode. But I undertook 2 weeks of intensive training with a guide dog instructor, and I learned how to catch buses again. And now I'm happy to say that I travel all over Canberra to speak by bus. And I'm even calm enough now. I will never be a completely calm traveler, but I am now calm enough to check my email between stops on my phone because I've got voiceover on my phone, so it will speak to me what's on the screen. So I just put in an earpiece and I can read my email on the bus. And thankfully, the bus drivers in Canberra are very well trained and they're very good bus drivers because I train them now. Ironically, I now go and I speak to bus drivers and I train them how to make bus travel more accessible for blind and vision impaired people, particularly guide dog users. And so they're very well trained. So I know that if I ask a driver to tell me when they get to a particular stop, I know they will. And we've also got a really good system on our buses called Next Bus. And there's a screen up the front of the bus that tells you where you are. And there's also audio announcements. So the announcements will say, next stop is, can't think of a street name. Next stop is such and such street, or, the Canberra University or wherever it is that we're going. So I can follow the stops. And there's also an app on my phone called Move It, which I understand is all over the world, MOOVIT. And it's a great app, and I can type in where I want to go and where I want to get off. And it will tell me how many stops I have left, and it will actually give me a little alarm to know so that I know when to get off the bus. So with all those things in place, I can travel reasonably calmly on the buses. So now I think it's about time that we took an ad break. So don't go away, and I will see you on the other side.
Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made for good people. That's why I love Happy Living's online e-course. It's an 8-week-long deep dive into you and the inspired life you want to live. The life you were put here on this earth to live. The one that you and only you can live. 8 weeks of lectures and ideas and topics and supporting materials and powerful self-improvement tools. All designed for you. All designed to help you create the tools and the power and the confidence you need to discover your purpose and to discover the life you were meant to live and to feel incredibly inspired and motivated to decide you will live your life to its fullest. It's all designed to help you create the unique and distinct philosophy of you and your inspired life. Go to happyliving.com, select our e-course, and save $100 with promo code WYTV7. And for every enrollment, I'll donate another $100 to WYTV7. For $300 and about 30 hours, I promise you'll never, ever be the same again.
Hello and welcome back to the Purpose Vision Future Show. And thank you to our lovely sponsors who make this broadcast and other broadcasts possible. So before the break, we were talking about courage and how to build courage. And I'd like to tell another story about courage and about facing your fears, because sometimes you just have to face your fears. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. And so this story is about a man called Peter. And it's not the Peter from the Bible, it's another Peter. And I've met this man. He's a lovely, gentle, quietly spoken, very dignified man. He's probably in his late 50s, early 60s. And I met him when I traveled up to Darwin, which is right up the north of Australia. And he told me his story. And he very kindly gave me permission to share his story with you today. So that's what I'm going to do. Did you know that a large 4-meter or 12-foot long saltwater crocodile can snap its jaws shut with a force which is about 15 times the bite strength of a human? That's enough to bite through steel and more than enough to shatter human bone. But I'm sure the Panqui family weren't thinking about this when they pitched their tent about 10 metres up a steep incline from a river on the West Australian Northern Territory border, which was well known for its barramundi. In barramundi are really, really, really delicious fish that we have here in Australia. They're big sort of game fish, and people love catching them and eating them and such. So yes, this river creek was well known for its barramundi, and they pitched their tent. Anyway, Lena has been sitting up late talking to her eldest son, Peter, and she lies down to rest when she hears a rustling sound. Oh, it's just pigs coming down to the creek to drink, she thinks. But she gets up on her elbow just to check. And it's then that she sees the huge saltwater crocodile coming towards her rapidly. "Look out," she yells. "Look what's coming." But it's too late, and the huge beast crashes through the screen of the tent and grabs her around the chest with such force that it fractures many of her ribs and very badly damages her liver. Peter, hearing the sound, sits up and sees the huge beast right in front of him with his mother in its jaws. And then he remembers what his father told him about how to scare off a saltwater crocodile. So he puts his hand on its head, slowly runs his hand up to where the eyes should be and pokes. Thankfully, that's enough to scare the croc away, and it releases Lena from its jaws and slides back down into the water. Peter didn't think about his fears then. He just did what he had to do. I mean, my gosh, the crocodile could have let go of Lena and grabbed him. Or it could have just taken Lena down into the water as it was, but it didn't. And thankfully, this story has a happy ending. Lena, what I didn't tell you is, well, no, this story, I'll start that again. But thankfully, this story has a happy ending. Peter and his father were able to get Lena into the back of their truck or their ute and drive. They had to drive for a number of hours through the dark, and Peter's father was guiding them through with the moonlight and the stars, and they were able to drive to the nearest station or farm or ranch, I guess you would call them, where there was a working telephone, and they called the Royal Flying Doctor Service because this was obviously very remote and the only way you could get medical help was by air. So they called the Royal Flying Doctor Service, who picked up Lena and took her to hospital in Darwin. And I think it took something like 6 hours for them to get from where they were to Darwin. And she was operated on it. She had to have 2 surgeries because they fixed her all up, and then they couldn't understand why she was still bleeding. And that's when they realized how badly damaged her liver was. But thankfully she survived. She's only a small woman, apparently. I didn't get to meet her, but she's only small, and you can still see the outline of the bite mark around her chest where the crocodile bit her. But what I didn't tell you, that not only did Peter show extraordinary courage, but so did Lena, because she just managed to get, when the croc broke through the tent, she just managed to get herself between the crocodile and her husband, because he had been recently or weakened by a recent illness and was still recovering. And she put her body over the top of his and saved his life as well. So we all have fears, and we all know that, you know, life isn't always easy, don't we? And we all know that we all face challenges. And sometimes we don't face our challenges so well because we run away from them. I know I do sometimes still run away from my challenges, or, you know, don't face my fears because of lack of courage. But I promise you, it is possible to face and overcome your fears by building your courage. And that's what I'm trying to do with this program, is to help people build their courage so they can face and overcome their challenges. So what are your challenges? What challenges are you facing right now? Tell me about them. I'd love to hear what you're facing, and perhaps even how you are overcoming your challenges. I'm in all the usual places on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can find all those contact details on the Purpose Vision Future page. So you just go to wytv7.org/purpose-vision-future, and all my contact details will be there. And if you like what you're hearing, please do donate to WYTV7.org, because your donation makes this show possible and all the other lovely shows that are on the network. Now, the stories that I've told you today, one of them is the story about catching buses, is in my book, Seeing by Vision, Not by Sight, which you can get from Seeing by Vision, Not by Sight. I'm sorry. These stories are, or one of these stories is in my book. The bus story is in my book. This book, Seeing by Vision, Not by Sight, which you can get from my website at purposevisionfuture.com. It's the same name as the show, purposevisionfuture.com. And what a wonderful way to start the new year, by discovering and living out your life's purpose, because that's what this book is about. But both of these stories are also stories that I tell in my keynote, because I'm not only a published author, but a professional keynote speaker. So if you would like me to talk to your company or your business and help you and your team to conquer uncertainty by building resilience and courage, please do reach out to me in, again, all the usual places, and I would love to talk to your people. Yes, I am based in Australia, but as you can see, I can do presentations virtually as well. So please do reach out to me. So thank you for joining me on the Purpose Vision Future show. Please do join me again next week, same time, same place, where we will talk more about building courage and how you can discover your purpose and live it out. So if you're facing a challenge today that seems a bit too big, you've got this. I know you've got this. All you need to do is reach deep down inside and grab hold of that courage that I know you have inside you and face it. And I promise you, you'll be just fine. Thank you.